Today's guest has been called the real life Olivia Pope. For those of you who never watched the television show Scandal, as I hadn't, Olivia Pope was the woman powerful people called when everything had gone wrong. She was a crisis manager, a fixer, someone who walked into impossible situations and somehow found a path through them. But today's guest isn't a fictional character. Her work is real, the danger is real, and the people she serves are real. Monica Morton is a veteran private detective, investigator, crisis strategist, and human trafficking recovery agent with more than 25 years of experience. She has conducted over 8,000 investigations, more than 1,000 surveillances, and led more than 50 human trafficking recovery operations that have helped recover over 5,000 men, women, and children. Let me say that again, 5,000 people. 5,000 human beings who are someone's child, someone's sister, someone's son, someone's friend. Most of us want to believe human trafficking happens somewhere else, another country, another city, to someone else's family. But Monica's work tells a different story. Trafficking is happening in affluent neighborhoods and small towns. It happens online in plain sight. It happens to runaway teens and honor students, to boys and girls, to people with loving families and people with none. And every day there are people like Monica who step into the darkness to bring them home. She's advised celebrities, professional athletes, billion-dollar organizations, and government agencies. She is an international speaker, an on-air crime expert, and in 2027 will become the first Black female private detective to star in a major investigative true crime series focused on missing and trafficked women. But perhaps her greatest legacy is still being built. The Morton Legacy Center, a 42,000 square foot resource and supportive housing center for survivors of human trafficking, will open in 2027 with one mission: helping survivors not simply survive, but heal. This conversation may be difficult, it may make you uncomfortable, but it may also change the way you see the world. Monica Morton, welcome to Joy of the Hang.
My pleasure. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
You spent your career walking into chaos and tragedy. Who is Monica Morton when the investigations stop and the cameras are off?
You know what? It's funny because I consider what I do almost like my ministry. And I will share with you people always ask me how I got into law enforcement. But when I was 9 years old, I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. And when I was 9 years old, I was in a park and I had just gotten a brand spanking new bicycle for my 9th birthday. It was very expensive. And this kid, about 16, 17 years old, I see him and his basketball rolled up to me and I was on the monkey bars. I thought I was being a lady. And I handed the ball to him. He swatted the ball, stole my brand spanking new bicycle. So I went home and I told my mother, and she says, "Well, we're not buying you a new bike." And I said, "Take me to the library." And she looked at me and she said, "You are the most insane child." I said, "Do not argue with me. Take me to the library." I went to the library. I went through the yearbooks for every school in my county. I found his photograph. I made my parents take me to the police department. I made them file a police report. I made them file a lawsuit against his parents. And the judge made his parents buy me a new bicycle, and I was 9 years old.
Wow.
So I feel like this is my calling. I was destined to be a private detective and in law enforcement. I was in law enforcement early in my career, but I didn't like it from the standpoint of I like getting personally involved in my cases. And when you're in law enforcement, you can't get personally involved with your cases. You have to solve the case and you move on. And as a private detective, you really can when you're rendering bad information or tragic information to families. I love being able to not only help them resolve whatever the problem is, but help them in their healing process too. So I think I was destined to be in my career.
Yeah. So what led you from that to being so passionate about human trafficking?
I have 2 girlfriends that were trafficked. Not that it makes any difference, but just for context, my white girlfriend was a retired supermodel in New York City. She was at a club, made the tragic mistake of not watching her cocktail, and her drink was roofied. And she woke up 48 hours later, handcuffed to a bed in the Philippines. It took me over 30 days to find her, but by the time I found her, she had been forced to have sex with anywhere between 10 to 20 men a day. And my Black girlfriend here in Atlanta, on a social media dating site, thought she was vetting this guy, looked up his address. He invited her to dinner, big fabulous house, didn't know that the house was actually an Airbnb rental property. He didn't own it. He didn't roofie her drink, he roofied her food. And same thing that happened with her, except this dude was really, really twisted. I mean, he was into bestiality. He forced her to have sex with animals. Then he sold her into trafficking. And again, had to find her, and it took me almost 2 months to find her. But what I discovered with both of these instances with my girlfriends, and this being personal for me, is that it was very challenging to find trauma-informed wraparound care services. When you have experienced something that tragic, it's not something that you just put a Band-Aid on. You are never the same after that type of trauma. So that was the encouragement that I needed to start my project, which is the Morton Legacy Center, which will be a 40-unit supportive housing facility here in Atlanta for survivors of human trafficking and sexual exploitation. So that is really what got me motivated. I got a chance to work with so many different areas of law enforcement, Homeland Security, DOJ, FBI. I got involved with recoveries. So I work with a lot of private NGOs. I work with families who they think that their kids are just missing, and they're not missing. They actually have been trafficked. So that's primarily the work that I do, is that I work with families as well as private organizations and NGOs in regards to human trafficking recoveries.
I want to go back to those two stories you just shared. One of
Mhm.
when you talked about your girlfriend in New York,
Mhm.
so she was roofied, which of course I don't know how long ago this was. Maybe you can share that. But I'm always telling I have a daughter who's 24, and she, of course, at that age, they think they know everything, right? And they don't understand how vulnerable they are. But I'm always like, don't ever take a drink from someone you don't know, and be very
Absolutely.
careful. Always keep your drink with you. All that. Make sure you're
Absolutely.
with another girlfriend. But I'm wondering, you said 48 hours later, she ended up in the Philippines from New
Yeah.
York?
Philippines.
How did that happen? They put her on a plane, or they drug them and put them on a
And
plane?
see, what people don't realize is that a lot of these traffickers, they're very, very, very organized. This is a business. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. I mean, last year was estimated to be well over $400 billion. I mean, it is a business. So sometimes it's commercial planes that they put somebody on. Sometimes it's private planes that they put somebody on, but it's always a combination between the two. And that's pretty much what happened with her. She was on a private plane, and she shared with me that it was her and it was a bunch of other women as well. And that's why people don't realize when you have these big, huge sporting events, two of the largest sporting events are the NBA finals and the Super Bowl. I've worked for about the past 10 years, most of the major Super Bowls, and we end up recovering. Last year, I think we recovered, I'm sorry, this year, I think we recovered well over 200 women, put close to 400 men in jail in regards to solicitation online websites. And, people just do not understand how pervasive trafficking is. It is everywhere. It's not in other countries. Everybody thinks, it's in Africa, it's in Asia. No, trust me, the United States, we're averaging about 27 million men, women, and children that are kidnapped into trafficking yearly. It's huge.
So when you bring up the sporting events, you mean that they are being, taken from or kidnapped from these large sporting
So a
events?
lot of
Because
times they will bring trafficking victims into these sporting events. So, men
Oh,
don't realize that they're on the dark web, or they're on these, off websites where they're soliciting women or soliciting minors or whatever.
yeah.
And don't realize that they're not just with a prostitute. This is somebody that has been trafficked. So yeah, a lot, you'd be shocked at how much of that takes place at a lot of these sporting events.
So how did you find her? You just said it took a month to find her. How did you locate her?
So I'm going to be honest with you. I am not a very good private detective. I'm one of the best damn private detectives in the country. I can
Okay.
find a black flea on a black dog. Trust me. So you utilize your sources, you utilize your law enforcement sources. I tell people all the time there's 4 elements. If you know if you have really good context in these 4 elements, it's not any crime that you cannot solve. And I'm going to share with you and your audience what they are. When you know
Okay.
the valet people, when you know the limo drivers, when you know the strippers, and when you know the executive assistants to all of your major people. If you know people in those categories, as well as the drug dealers, it's not anybody you can't find because they know everything about everything. And between local law enforcement, pulling camera video documentation of where she was from the club, was able to track the vehicle that she was put in, using the flock cameras, which are the cameras that can pick up on your tag readers, being able to talk to different people that knew this particular organization that actually was working out of that particular club. So all of those things. And I knew that it had to be not commercial. I knew that it had to be private as far as the airlines, because they would have commercial, they'd have to buy a ticket, driver's license, date of birth, all that kind of information. So
Passport, yeah. Yeah.
using all of my sources, I was able to track her all the way to the Philippines. And with FBI, local law enforcement in the Philippines, we were able to recover her. But yeah, it took me almost 30 days to find her.
Now, when you're able to recover these individuals, are you also able to press charges against the perpetrators, or are they just getting, is your mission to take these organizations down with, when you do the rescue mission, or is it your mission simply to rescue?
So it's a combo of both. In a perfect world, you always want to be able to shut down the actual traffickers if you can. A lot of
Right.
it has to do with logistics. Is it stateside? Is it domestic? Is it international? Because the laws are very different. You would be shocked at the variables when it comes down to the laws in different countries. Some of the countries are very, very, very stern on trafficking. They're real high on prosecuting. You have other countries where it literally is their economic development. It brings business in. So they end up paying off the right people. And because it's such a high grossing business, they're really not interested in prosecuting the traffickers because that's how that particular country is making money. Hate to say that, but that's the reality of it. So if most of the time, if we can, which is why I usually work with those 3 entities, either the DOJ, Homeland Security, or the FBI, in regards to, because all 3 of those governmental agencies are very serious about trafficking and very serious about prosecuting the actual traffickers. So first of all, both if I can in a perfect world, but definitely the recoveries. And of course, if we can prosecute the traffickers, we always want to be able to do that.
Okay, so now let's move forward to the sporting event. So if I were at a large sporting event,
Mhm.
how would I recognize someone that may be being trafficked? How would I recognize that somebody needs help?
So there are what we call the classic signs of somebody that may possibly have been trafficked. The way they're dressed, I hate to say that. A lot of times they're not dressed appropriately for whatever the weather is or the season is. It's more about dressing in an enticing way where they may have on something very low cut or something very tight. If they won't make direct eye contact with you, if they're reluctant about actually speaking to you, if they're with somebody, and it can be a male or a female, people tend to assume that traffickers are just men. No, they're not. There are just as many female traffickers as there are male traffickers. So if you see them with somebody and you may say hello or hey, what do you think about this event? Are you having a good time? If they're reluctant to respond or they won't answer the question or they look to the other person to see, is it okay for me to speak? That's a classic sign. That's not normal. I mean, if you were with your husband or your partner or whatever, or same with me, it would be nothing for me to say, "Oh God, I'm having a great time." I would never have to look to my spouse before I could speak. Body language, when you see if whether their body language is they're open, they're approachable, or if they're closed off and they won't make eye contact with you, or their arms are crossed in front of them. All of those things are indicators for us in regards to somebody that's being trafficked. And I'll share a quick story with you. I was shopping during the Christmas holidays and I saw this gentleman and he literally was dragging this little boy through the mall. And I happened to notice that he had urinated on himself. He was wet. in, his genitalia area. And I knew that that wasn't normal. So I went up to him and I said, "Sweet Pea," I said, "Are you okay?" And he just was petrified. He didn't say anything. So I knew something wasn't right there. So I went and found mall security. They stopped the gentleman. Come to find out, this little boy had just been kidnapped. And because he had urinated on himself, the guy was trying to get ready to put him on a flight. And they knew that they couldn't because his little pants were wet. So they were there trying to find him a change of clothes. But see, most people will probably look at that and say, "That's just this bad kid. He's upset at his dad or his granddad or his uncle." No, for me, I knew that something was wrong there because this kid, I mean, he literally was dragging him through the mall and the little boy was just crying. And, I was like, what is going on here? And then, like I said, he had urinated on himself. So I was like, no, something's not right here. So it takes us, Sharon, to be able to pay attention. You don't have to be an investigator to observe when something just doesn't look right.
Well, you were his angel that day for sure.
Mm,
But why do you think that he wouldn't tell you that he was kidnapped? Why do you think he didn't speak up for himself?
Petrified,
He's
absolutely
just so
petrified because
yeah.
the guy had told him, if you say anything, you do anything, I'll kill you. So he was just petrified in saying something. But once the mall security showed up, he felt safe enough to be able to tell them and myself what was really going on. And that's usually what the case is with most people is fear. Even women, doesn't have to be an 8 or 9-year-old kid. It can be a grown woman. It's fear because they'll tell you. We'll find out where your family lives. We'll find out if you have kids. We'll kill everybody. I've heard that story more times than I can count. And in some instances, they mean it.
So the purpose of bringing the sex trafficked individuals to a large sporting event is to
Mhm.
sell them or to get them to
Yes.
prostitute themselves? Is that the
Yes.
purpose?
Yeah. Basically sell them. I mean, they're charging anywhere, but it depends on what it is that they want, whether they just want normal sex, they want oral sex, anal sex, they want to take photographs, they take them off the property, whatever it is. So, yeah,
So
I mean, it's strictly to make money. And you'd be shocked. I mean, they make millions, tons of money.
so there are men and women that are going to these events looking for other men and women to have sex with, I'm assuming. So they would be looking for these individuals to
So most of the time, Sharon, it's already set up. That's how we
Oh,
were able to. It's already set up
okay.
where, these. I hate to say it, but everyday average men, they go on these sites. There's so many different sites. It's not even funny, but it's not just Backpage or Discord or some of these other sites. It's tons of them. And they'll set up, you will have somebody for you. We'll meet you afterwards. And that's exactly what they do. The women solicit the men. And sometimes it's actually there. It happens there, but the majority of the time it happens off property. They just set it up for them to meet there and then they leave. But when we're working with local law enforcement or even if federal law enforcement, we just use it as a setup. They think they're going to be meeting with this person to have sex and they end up being arrested.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I always wondered how they're able to force these young men and women to have sex with strangers. What kind of control, how they're able to wield their control over them so that they
Mhm,
actually, you know what I mean? Like,
mhm.
are they always chaperoned? Do they always have somebody with them?
Always. Always. I
Okay.
had a situation happen here recently in Atlanta where I got a phone call from the police in Texas where there was a Romeo pimp. And it started and I'm sure if you don't know what a Romeo pimp is, those are the guys that come under the guise of being the good guy. They find out that this young lady, her parents just passed, or she's in a troublesome situation where she doesn't get along with mom and dad at home. He comes in as the knight in shining armor and, "Hey, I'll take care of you. You don't have to worry about anything. I've got you. You need a place to stay. I'll put you up. You can come and stay with me. You can stay with my family." He's actually a Romeo pimp. So we had a situation where a Romeo pimp, this young lady's parents had passed and she didn't know what to do and the house ended up getting taken and she meets the Romeo pimp and she realizes that he wants her to prostitute herself. And that's exactly what she started doing. He started posting her on social media, prostituting or pimping her out. And she was able to make a phone call, and the police called me because he was transporting her from Texas to Atlanta. He already had 3 women working out of a hotel by the airport here in Atlanta, and he was bringing her to be the 4th. So we were able to, I was able to intercede where she was smart. He didn't know that she had an extra phone. She had the phone that he had given her for prostitution. And then she was some kind of way was able to have this secret phone. So when she got to the hotel, she said, "Hey, I want to get something to drink." And there's a store, convenience store right in front of the hotel. And I was parked behind the store. And when she went in to go and get something to drink, because he trusted her by then, that she came out the back. I threw her in my truck, got her on a plane. We got her to a safe house. I mean, I got her out of Georgia, period, and got her to a safe house in another state. But that's a good story. They don't always turn out like that. But the police were able to get involved with that one because he already had 3 women at the same hotel, and she was going to be the 4th. He had 4 rooms rented, and that's all they were doing all day and all night. Men coming through that the women were being prostituted out to.
So I said earlier in the intro that there are men, women, and children all included in sex trafficking as
Sure.
targets. Is there a particular demographic, though, that is more at risk?
Yes. Now, believe it or not, it's your 11 to 14-year-old girls that is really your largest demographic. About 20% of your trafficking victims are boys. What's interesting is that the girls are usually kidnapped for sex. The boys are usually kidnapped for labor trafficking. Most people don't realize that there's 8 different areas of trafficking. It's not just sex trafficking. It's sex trafficking, forced labor, debt bondage, forced marriages, child soldiers, organ trafficking, and domestic servitude. So all of those areas legally fall under human trafficking, because anytime you are solicited, forced, coerced, those are the legal terms that the prosecutors look for in regards to how somebody can get involved in trafficking. So it's huge. And the second largest area is organ trafficking. That's huge. That's
I was
primarily,
just going to ask you that. Does that mean what I think it means?
yes, yeah, organ trafficking. Asian, Africa, huge with organ trafficking. Same thing here in the States. When you've got somebody that's on a waiting list and they're looking for, a kidney or a liver, and they've got money, and, it's 100, I forget, there's different prices. Corneas, 40,000 on the black market. Livers, kidneys, anywhere between $80,000 to $100,000. And you have people that will pay those kind of prices, especially if it's somebody who can afford it, and they've got health issues, and they're on the register's list, and it's taking too long, whatever. If you've got the money, please, all day, every day. It's like putting in an order for an organ, and that's what they do. Organ trafficking is huge, huge. Not as
So
not
they
as
so
much
they will
as sex
no.
trafficking, but it's big.
So they will kidnap somebody who's might be a match, and
Hmm.
then they'll harvest their organ
Yep,
to sell to somebody that needs it.
exactly. It's very, very, very big in Asia. Huge in Asia. Yeah,
Wow, that's shocking to me.
yeah,
It gives me chills. And so
yeah.
what kind of labor, you said that labor trafficking, what kind of labor would young men be trafficked for?
So forced labor. So this is the ploy that they've been using, especially since the pandemic, because there were so many immigrants that came here from other countries that they were told, "We'll get you a passport. We'll get you a driver's license. We'll get you housing." So these people are thinking, "Wow, great, I'm going to get a job." But what they don't tell them is that you have to work off what you
Ugh.
owe us. So they could say the bill is $15,000. We got your driver's license. We got your passport. We got your housing. You got to
Yeah.
work this bill off. So they go and they put them on all of these agricultural farms or these manufacturing facilities. See, this is what I mean, Sharon, about why people don't realize this is a business. So I'm going to give you a hypothetical. Let's
Okay.
say I have a poultry factory, right?
Okay.
I'm just
Yeah.
making this up. I have a poultry factory. If instead of having to pay the average person $18 to $20 an hour to pluck a chicken, if I'm working with the cartel or whomever, some trafficking organization, They are going to bring in workers that I can literally pay the organization $7 an hour, $8. You are literally saving millions of dollars. You do not have to provide any kind of health care. You're not paying a normal hourly salary. So it's a win-win for both situations. The traffickers are getting paid. The manufacturer of the company is his overhead cost is drastically reduced. And this person is in a forced labor situation where they never end up paying off the debt. They never end up paying off the debt. So they are in debt to that trafficker to the end of time. And that's forced labor. And you find it everywhere. Oh my goodness, all over the country. Hate to say it, but it's the reality of it. It really is.
Wow. I mean, if it's so widespread, I just don't understand why these organizations can't be taken down. It
It's
confuses me
business,
that
and it's the same thing that we're looking at now, and that's a whole nother conversation, Sharon. We don't even have time to get into this political climate that we're in. It's business. You will never convince me that the powers that be in these very high-ranking political offices aren't aware of what's going on. They are. They are. Their focus is not on that. They don't consider that the most important duty of the day. Well, it is when somebody is being forced to work against their will and they're not even receiving any money. They're not getting any salary because
right.
all of the money is going towards the debt of what they owe for their housing and for their passport, for their driver's license. You know, they put them in these places where it's 10 bunk beds in there. They don't even have any privacy. They take them in these vans or the buses to work every day. It's like slavery. It's like modern day slavery.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's shocking to me. It really is. It's hard to wrap your head around the
Yeah, but it's
enormity of it all.
real.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've rescued thousands of people, yet I imagine there are faces you never forget. Do you
Mm.
carry them with you?
You know what? I'm a believer. I'm a Christian and have been for all my life. If it wasn't for my faith and my belief, this is not easy what you see. All the situations, I've seen situations where we've recovered people, men and women. And because they have been so traumatized that the only thing that they knew was the trauma. So even though we've recovered them, they go back into what they've gotten used to, especially when you're dealing with somebody that's been in it for years. That's why having really good trauma informed care. When I made the decision to start the Morton Legacy Center, I spent 2 years traveling around the country to visit with the best human trafficking organizations because I wanted to see what's working, what works and what doesn't work. And a lot of them, bless them, I'm going to say this, and it's probably going to be controversial, but a lot of them have what I call a biscuit and a blanket mentality, where they think that, okay, I've recovered you. Let me make sure you've got a roof over your head and you're being fed. Well, if you've just been forced to have sex with 20 men a day for 2 years, not 2 days, not 2 weeks, not 2
Yeah.
months, you are literally having sex with 20 men a day. You figure that out in a week. That's 140 men. You can't wrap your brain around that. Being forced to do anything and everything that they want. This is not like your husband or your spouse or your partner. It can be all kinds of depravity when it comes down to sex. So when you
Mm,
think about that, you can't give them a blanket and feed them and think they're supposed to be okay.
right.
You can't. You have to provide the type of mental health counseling to help them to get over the trauma and to discover the new person because you're never the same person after that kind of trauma. Whoever you were when that happened and coming out of it, you're a different person.
Right.
So when you understand that, you can provide, like if our program, we have everything mental health counseling, drug counseling, mentoring programs. With our program, if they stay in our program for at least 6 months, we help them to get a job. If they stay with us for at least 6 months, we even give them a car because here in Atlanta, you really have to have transportation. So everything, driver's license, a car, we stay with them after they have graduated from our program. It's not like you get through it, fine, biscuit, a blanket, bam, bye. You can't. It is a lifelong commitment. Most organizations, they don't look at it that way. But for us, it's a lifelong commitment whatever we have to do to make sure somebody feels safe and healthy. And, we support through education. We've got scholarship programs with the local colleges, community colleges, vocational stuff. We do down payment assistance to help them. We will give them the money down payment to help them to buy their first little condo or home or whatever, because you have to show people that you support them. You can't just talk. Your actions have to show up with what you're saying.
100%. Yeah, and the mental health piece is so important. I
Huge.
mean, I cannot
Yes.
even imagine, like, how you get over that kinda trauma.
Oh
I
gosh, yeah.
just
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's gotta take years, right? And lots of support. I
And
had
lots of
a
support.
Yeah, I had a, young lady who was, a victim of sex trafficking, and she shared the story that she was actually sex trafficked by her own mother. So
Yeah.
her mom was a drug addict,
Yep.
and, when she got to a certain age, probably around 11, she started to look more like a young lady and
Mhm.
became more attractive to the men that so her mom had been prostituting herself to get money for drugs. And then when her
Mhm.
daughter became of an age where the men were noticing her,
Mm.
the mom said, "Well, I don't need to do this anymore. I can have my young daughter do that and
It's
make more
pretty
money."
common. You would
Is
be
that
shocked. It's pretty common. Yeah, it
I
is,
was
Sharon. It's very common.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was shocked actually, and yeah, heartbroken for her because, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think she's still fully well, I know she doesn't. She doesn't find herself valued or worth
Sure.
anything, right?
Yeah.
Totally worth, right? I mean, it
Yeah. I
takes
mean, how do you rebuild a relationship when you and I were raised from the concept, at least I was for sure, and I think you probably were too, Sharon, that your parents are to be an example of what you want to be as an adult. You want to be confident and compassionate and kind and caring and generous. And how do you see the person who birthed you, brought you
right,
into the world, then they turn around and exploit you by
right.
selling you?
Yeah. The one thing that really struck me with her story though was she said I she would go to school and, she wasn't well taken care of. She's from a poor that was another thing. She was from a very poor area in Mississippi and,
Okay.
place where, you wouldn't nobody would know and it was small.
Sure.
Everybody kinda knew each other. And so she went to school and she goes, "I was just wanting the teachers to ask." And I said, "If a teacher had asked what was happening at home, would you have told them?" And she said, "I would have." And she said, "You know why? Because for me, it was normal." She said, "I just
Wow.
thought everybody this is the way it was." And she said, "I wouldn't have thought any shame about it or thought anything was wrong with it because that was my
You know
upbringing,"
what? And
right?
I'll tell you something, Sharon. I hate to get on my soapbox, but I'm gonna get on it. You just open up the door. I think teachers are some of the most underrated and underpaid people in the world, and it's shameful because I know for me, and I could tell you all. I have two teachers that were everything for me. Claudia Parks. She saw something in me. And when I graduated from high school, she gave me a book called I Dare You. I was the only Every year she gave the book to only one student. And I was the one student that year that she gave the book to. And she said, I dare you to go out into the world and do great things. And I
Mm,
still have that book. And she saw something in me. And then Dr. Shaw saw something in me as well. Those teachers really had everything to do with me, with my career, because they saw something in me. And with that, they put me in programs and sponsored different things for me because they saw that I had something different and I had something special. And teachers, it can't just be about just a curriculum, teaching a class. They really do have a responsibility to be observant with their students. If they
yeah,
see an attitude change, if they see the grades going down, I cannot tell you the stories that I've heard from kids. I just spoke at a school here to 350 kids, and I spoke at a school up in New York City to 2,000 kids. And the stories that these children shared with me afterwards of how they had been approached by different Romeo pimps and the sneaker pimps and the gorilla pimps and, women grooming the young men and not realizing, giving them a cell phone, and the kid thinks that this lady is attracted to him and she gave him the phone because he wanted a phone so bad, not realizing that he's being groomed by a female trafficker. building
Oh,
that trust, building that relationship. Where teachers see all of that. They see all of it. And because they're so overwhelmed and underpaid, a lot of times their focus is, okay, do I educate them or do I literally have to turn into their daytime parent? Yeah, you do.
yeah.
Yeah, you do. Because a
That's
lot of times the kids will tell you what's going on with them if they feel like that they can trust you, they'll tell you.
yeah, that's what she said. That's what she
Yeah,
said. Yeah.
yeah.
So, after witnessing so much evil, what has it done to your faith in humanity?
It's made me more determined. I do not believe in that philosophy. I get upset when people say one person can't make a difference. Oh, yeah, you can. One person can definitely make a difference. So I've just made the decision. I've seen how God has given me favor, put me in. I'm leaving next week to go speak at a conference in London that the Lord opened up an opportunity for me to go and travel. So I've been traveling all around the world. I've been asked to possibly do not just the show that they asked me to do next year, looking for missing women, but another show about trafficking as well. So I know that that's favor. I know that's God, but that's an opportunity for me to share with the world because we have to get back to a village mentality. It can't just be where we're in silos and the only thing we care about is our kids, our grandkids, our kids. No, no, no. You have a responsibility to have a village mentality. Care about your neighbors, care about your friends, associates. I care about everybody. I
Yeah.
can't go anywhere without meeting somebody that has a story or has somebody that's been trafficked or they've been sexually exploited in some kind of way, whether it's porn or prostitution or whatever. So we have a responsibility to look around and see how we can make a difference. So for me, I do think one person can make a difference for sure.
I agree. Was there one case that fundamentally changed you?
Wow. Yeah. There was a lady that I recovered. She had never had anything of her own. Never. She came
Mm.
from a home that was filled with domestic violence. So it was very easy for her to meet a Romeo pimp. And he ended up prostituting her out. And then from there, she ended up being trafficked. And I was able to recover her. And I took her to lunch one day and she said, "Do you have a driver's license?" And I said, "Yes, sweetie. It's required that you have a driver's license to be able to drive." And she was 40 years old. She said, "I've never had a driver's license. I've never had anything that I felt like belonged to me." And she said, "I've never had a library card. I've never had," and it was so astonishing to me that something that simple meant everything to her. So I was able to help her get her first driver's license and she cried. I mean, it was so stunning, simple things that you and I take for granted. Sharing, go, bam, take the test, get her driver's license, bam. And for her, it was like a rite of passage to
Oh,
get something as simple as a driver's license. And she was
oh,
40 and she never had one. She didn't know how to drive a car, had never owned her own vehicle, and she was 40. So,
oh,
we helped her with that to get her first. We got her a nice little used car. And I mean, it just touched my soul to see how something that simple, a driver's license and a
yeah.
car, could literally change somebody's life. I mean,
How
I
long had she
just
been trafficked? What
oh my
how
goodness, probably 10 years?
wow, most of her
Long
life.
time, long
Wow,
time. Yeah, long time. Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I wanna talk more about understanding human trafficking because I don't wanna let this subject go yet, and I know we're already 40 minutes in, but this is such an important topic. So how widespread is it here in America?
Woo, it is okay. This is what it's always shocking when I say this to people, and sometimes they get upset. There is not a suburb, a city, a state, or a country that doesn't have trafficking in it in some capacity. I don't care if you live in Beverly Hills. I don't care if you live in Palm Springs. I don't care if you live on the Gold Coast in Chicago. There is not a suburb, city, country, or state that trafficking is not prevalent. It is everywhere. It's
Yeah.
just most people don't pay attention. They don't pay attention to the homes where you've got a whole bunch of cars there or, people coming in and out. You think it's family. No, it's not. They're smart. They don't just work out of hotels anymore. They work out of houses, big houses,
Well,
mansions.
Yeah, I mean, when you mentioned that, I mean, before we started recording, we were talking about the Jeffrey Epstein case, probably the most
Absolutely.
famous sex
Yeah,
trafficking case that's, all over the media still.
yeah,
And I mean, who would have expected it to be happening in Palm Beach, Florida, one of the most affluent
exactly.
regions in the
Yeah,
whole country, right?
yeah,
By one of the
exactly.
wealthiest, and the perpetrators, we still don't know the extent.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna say this, and it's gonna be controversial. I'm gonna say it anyway. That list will never come out. It will never fully come out. If it did, it would literally shut the world down, not the country, the world. If you notice, I'm gonna refresh everybody's memory.
Yeah.
When little small samples of that list first were leaked, you had Bill Gates come up and he was saying, then you had this executive resign and you
Clinton.
had this executive retire. That list will never come out. It will shut the world down. The world
Wow.
would be stunned to find out the people that have been involved with trafficking, whether it's from a business perspective or whether it's from an actual sexual exploitation perspective where they've had sex. You'd be shocked at the people that have sex with underage boys and girls. Are you kidding me? It's a game. It's a game and
Mm.
it's everywhere. And especially forced servitude in your foreign countries. There are countries that still believe in forced servitude, where they have housemen and housewomen and maids. And these people are literally forced, kidnapped, forced, sold to people in other countries for forced servitude. Happens all the time, every day, all day.
Yeah,
It's
it's crazy.
everywhere.
Wow. Well,
It's
and we
everywhere.
talked a little bit about this, but specifically, what warning signs should every parent and grandparent be aware of?
You know what? I think one of the first and most important things is talk to your kids about grooming. Talk to your children, your grandchildren, your cousins, your nieces, your nephews. Talk to them about what is appropriate touching and what isn't. Because most children are groomed. They may have an aunt or an uncle who's very touchy. I remember I had an uncle, I was about 10, and I remember that he would like touch my leg and I wasn't comfortable with it. And I told my mom and dad because whenever I would see him, you know how you see your grandparents, whatever, and you hug them and you kiss them or whatever. Well, he would always kiss me, but when he tried to kiss me, he would stick his tongue in my mouth.
Oh
And I
my
remember
God.
telling my parents, I was like, and my mom was like, well, maybe he, and my father was like, no, it's not that he didn't know better. He has no business sticking his tongue in her mouth. And she's 10. So I wasn't allowed to go around him anymore. My parents forbade him from coming to the house. But there's different ways that kids are groomed where it's so important as a parent to teach your children, what's appropriate in touch and what isn't. If it's a little girl, her breast, if it's a little boy, his private parts. If it's in between their legs or their butt or whatever, it's so important that parents have that conversation because grooming, that's how it takes place with coaches, basketball coaches, tennis coaches, baseball coaches, all those kind of things, gymnastics. And I mean, we know all the horror stories about these coaches that had literally been grooming their students for years in the girls, gymnastics. So it's okay that coach blah, 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 when he lifts me up, he's touching my breast. No, that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
No. So if we don't have these honest conversations with our kids, then they're not prepared. You have to prepare them for grooming. And that's the biggest thing that I personally see as I travel around the country, speak at conferences, talk to other human trafficking investigators, is the lack of parental awareness when it comes down to grooming.
Well, and you were lucky that your parents listened to you and took you seriously. I think a lot of parents, especially, I would imagine, and I'm making assumptions here, but I would
Mhm.
imagine it like in the gymnastics world, the parents
Sure.
so want their children to be the next gold medalist that they're willing
Yes.
to trust the coach, right? And not
Yeah,
trust their own child.
absolutely. Yep.
So I think, yeah, so I think a lot of that probably happens. But if someone
Mhm.
suspects a child or adult is being trafficked, what should they do and what should they never do?
they should never approach the person that they think is the actual trafficker. If they suspect that there is any type of forced marriage, forced servitude, forced bondage, any of that, report it to the police, because what will end up happening is that you can put yourself in danger by approaching the person. They can retaliate against you because you don't know whether it's just an individual or they're part of an organization or the cartel. You have to make sure that you're also not putting that child, male or female, that person into harm's way by approaching that actual individual. Law enforcement should absolutely be contacted and stay on it and make sure that I would rather see a situation be investigated and it be determined that nothing's going on than it not be investigated and it actually is a trafficking situation. So don't worry about, oh, are they going to be upset? Oh, I may have made a mistake. Oh, I'm overthinking. I can't tell you how many times I've been cut. If I see something and something don't look right to me, I will say something in a heartbeat. I will. But I
Yeah.
would rather be cussed out because I did say something than me not having said something and that person was actually a victim of some type of human trafficking.
Right. It goes back to that old adage, see something, say something, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's get into the subject of your rescue missions. When you walk into a recovery operation, what's going through your mind?
Because I'm an energy person, I can sense their energy. And most of the time they're fearful. They've lost their trust. I mean, because they entrusted somebody, whether they were at it was a family member that sold them. I can't tell you how many investigations I've worked, like what you mentioned earlier, where the mother, the father, that's very prevalent in Asia. It's usually the parents that will literally sell their kids into trafficking. So most of them have lost their trust. So for me, I always want to let them know that you're safe, and that having a conversation to let me know how I can help you, that you're safe with that, because it takes trust for them to trust me to be able to help them, because everybody has betrayed their trust. Everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. What does fear feel like for you?
Fear anything.
You don't fear anything. You're fearless.
No, I don't
Wow,
fear
I
anything.
love
Long as I
that.
know I got God. I've been in this for almost 30 years. I've worked like well over these 8,000 investigations. I've done recoveries all over the world. I've been in some really nasty, dicey situations, and I
Yeah.
don't fear anything because I know, one, I'm God's child. I know I'm God's chosen. I know that I'm protected. I know my angels are with me. So I never, ever, ever walk into a situation fearful, because fear is an energy. And it's also an energy that people can pick up on. If they feel that you're fearful, that gives them an advantage. I don't fear nothing. Nothing. I do
Have
not.
you ever gone to a rescue mission and been too late?
No,
Okay, good. That's
no.
encouraging.
Yeah,
That's
no.
that's great.
Yeah. God,
Is
God,
there a
it's
re
all God's
Yeah.
timing. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Is there a rescue that still keeps you awake at night?
You know what? I think I can still see the faces of every single last man, woman, and child that I've recovered. I have a memory like an elephant. I remember asking my mother one time about a memory that I had, and she looked at me and she said, "Oh my God, you were two." And I said, "Are you kidding me?" She said, "You were two." I mean, I remember it was such a vivid memory. And I have a memory like an elephant. So every single man, woman, and child that every investigation that I've ever worked, I promise you, I can still see their faces. So for me, it gives me something, one, to pray for, because I always pray for it. Whether I recovered them 15 years ago or I recovered them last week, I always pray that everybody will find their happiness, because happiness is a choice, Sharon. People don't realize that. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with wealth, education, status, prominence. None of that. Happiness is a choice. So when you make the decision that you want to be happy, you don't let any external circumstances interfere with your happiness and your joy. I wake up happy, I go to bed happy, because I'm literally living my dream of doing what I do. I love what I do. Love it.
It's amazing. What's the
Mhm.
first thing a victim says or doesn't say that breaks your heart?
The first thing most of them say is thank you. And what breaks my heart is when they ask me, will I ever feel normal again? And I have to help them to understand that my job and my team's job is to help them to find their new normal. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Mhm.
Because you can't ever tell somebody you'll feel normal again, and they've been abused for years, or, some of them, they've been beaten, not just sexually abused, but they're beaten, and it's almost like a form of brainwashing, almost like a cultish type like mentality that they have, where they have to ask for everything: permission to go to the bathroom, permission to eat, permission to talk to somebody. So we have to help them to find their new normal, because they will never be who they were before the trauma. So for
Is
me,
there
when they
is there
ask me that, that's always hard for me.
is there a high suicide rate among survivors?
I wouldn't say a high suicide rate, but I would say that there is a high rate of alcoholism, drug addiction, because they have to, a lot of times they feel like that they need an outlet to deal with the trauma and the pain.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say a high suicide rate, because a lot of them feel like that they're already dead after what they've experienced. We just have to help revive them and help
Mm.
them to find a new life. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and I'm wondering too, are there some cases where they don't wanna be rescued, that they've gotten used to this lifestyle and they don't know another way?
Yeah, I remember this one case that I worked recently, where when I recovered the young lady, I told her, we have to go, because he's going to realize that you're not coming back. We have to go. And she started making excuses for why she needed to go back to the brothel. My clothes are there. I said, sweetheart, anything you need, we can get you. And I had to literally make her understand, you can't go back. If you go back, you're going to have to stay in that situation. We have to leave. And it's funny, because after I was able to get her out of there and we got her to a safe house, and, we put her into trauma informed mental health counseling, and I've stayed in contact with her. It's been a couple of months now. And I remember her saying, Miss Monica, just thank you. She said, I can't believe that I actually wanted to go back. She said, it made me realize how traumatized I was, that I would rather deal with the trauma than have a new opportunity. I was afraid of the new opportunity. I mean, I literally had to talk, and it took the police as well, that the police were with me as well when we did the recovery. And they told her, you can't go back. If you go back, he's going to traffic you again. You
Right.
have to leave. And it took all of us to make her understand that you got to go. Come on. So
Well, and I think
situations like, yeah,
yeah, and I go back to the story you were telling about the one that was trafficked for 10 years. I mean, imagine 10 years of gaslighting and 10 years of, trust, kind of trusting this other person, right? And
yes,
whether, obviously you know what's being done and what you're doing is wrong or not normal, but you
hmm,
get used to, like you said, the new normal. And,
yes,
you don't know how to survive on your own. You don't have a driver's license. You don't have a simple thing like a library card. And you look at that world must seem even scarier than the world that
yes.
you're currently in, right?
Absolutely. Everything. I mean, a part of our program, we partner with one of the local banks here, where we open up a checking and a savings account for them. We put the money in there for them. But you would be shocked at just basic financial literacy, not understanding basic, you
How
know,
would you? Yeah,
card and how to balance a checkbook. And you're like, oh my goodness. But those are things that we take for granted, that they just have never been exposed to. They don't understand it.
right. You wouldn't, right? Even getting a cell phone, right? Because, yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your legacy, Monica. You're building the Morton Legacy Center. Why
Uh-huh.
was it important for you to create not just a rescue mission, but a place for healing?
You know what? I felt like I owed it to my mom and my dad and my ancestors. I know that in our family, I'm the one that's been chosen to do bigger, better, greater. So for me, when I realized that this was my calling, doing the human trafficking recoveries, I wanted to create a legacy that will live on after I've passed on. And this will, because we're providing services that will really help restore men, women, and children their lives. That's important to me. I want everybody to know how important it is, and that they deserve to live a good life. There's people that feel like that they're not worthy, Sharon. They really do. They feel like that they're not worthy to have happiness and live in a nice home and drive a car and travel and see the world. No, every single last one of us deserves to live a well lived, happy life. So, any kind of way that myself and my team in the Legacy Center can contribute to people leading happy lives, that's what I want to do. I'm committed to doing that.
Amen. I love that. Well said. What do survivors teach us about resilience?
Don't take your life for granted and always walk in your truth. Walk in your
Mm,
truth. If you know that you deal with self esteem issues, let's work on that because that's the number one thing that I see, Sharon, that most of my survivors, because they don't like to be called victims, but most of my survivors deal with is self esteem issues.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah. Because if you don't feel like you're enough and you've got some man or some woman telling you, hey, I want to take care of you, you're amazing, you're this, you're that, they're feeding into your low self esteem. So I think it's so important to walk in your truth, know your value, know you're enough, and really understand the importance of your value. And most people don't. They doubt that. Men and women. They do, they doubt it.
100%. What do you hope people remember about Monica Morton long after you're gone?
That I was a blessing and that I helped them to recognize their worth and their value, that they deserve God's best.
Beautiful. And the last question before we get into our 5 final hang questions. If your life's work could accomplish one thing beyond the rescues, what would it be?
That I made a difference in the way that people see the world.
Okay, I love that. Okay, you ready for the final hang? Here we go.
Okay.
Number 1, of all the people you've helped rescue, what have they taught you about the human spirit?
Resiliency.
Great. Number 2, is there someone you couldn't save who still lives in your heart?
Yes.
Number 3, what is something you know about humanity today that you didn't know 25 years ago?
That we are responsible for how we show up in the world.
That. Number 4, if everyone listening today remembered just one sentence from this conversation, what would you want that sentence to be?
You have a responsibility to care for others.
I like that one. And final question. When your story is finished and people ask, who was Monica Morton? What do you hope they're told?
She was a freaking beast.
She was a badass.
She was a badass. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Monica, we're going to say goodbye. Today, you've given us far more than an interview. You've given us an education, a wake up
Thank
call, and a reminder that some of the greatest battles happening in our country are taking place in plain sight. It's
Yeah.
easy to believe human trafficking happens somewhere else to someone else, but you've reminded us that vulnerability doesn't discriminate. It can touch any
Yeah.
family, any community, and any child. You spent your life
Mhm.
running toward danger while most of us run away from it. And because of
Mhm.
that, thousands of people have another chance at life. Thousands of families have been given hope. Thousands of futures have been rewritten. What moves me most is that after witnessing some of the darkest parts of humanity, you've chosen to build something extraordinary, a place where
Mhm.
survivors can heal, rebuild, and reclaim their dignity. And that may be your greatest rescue of all. Thank you for your
Yeah.
courage. Thank you for your compassion. And thank you for reminding us that every life is precious and that one person truly can make an immeasurable difference. To our listeners, if today's conversation moved you, don't simply listen and move on. Talk about it. Learn the warning
Yes.
signs. Have difficult conversations with your children and
Yeah.
grandchildren. Support
Yeah.
organizations doing this work because awareness can save a life. And perhaps because of what you heard today, you may be the person who notices what someone else misses. Until next time, take care of one another, pay attention to the people around you, and never underestimate the power of seeing another human being and refusing to look away. Thank you, Monica, for being with us.
Thank you. A pleasure.